Hello everyone. Today we will study a new chapter, a new name, and it's written by Linda Sue Park. And before starting the chapter, let's know about her. So, Linda Sue Park is the author of more than 2 dozen books for young readers, including picture books, middle grade, and young adult novels, short stories, and poetry. Among her titles are the 2002 Newbery Medal winner, A Single Shard, and the New York Times bestseller, A Long Walk to Water. And most of her work is based upon Korean history, as she was Korean American writer. So most of her work is based upon Korean history and culture. And this chapter is an extract from a book named When My Name Was Kyoko. This is a passage from that. And the story is about a Korean girl. Now, children, if I tell you that from today, the name that you are having, you will not have that name. But I will give you a new name, absolutely new name. And I will ask you that you can't speak in your own language, but I will tell you that it is compulsory that you speak a foreign language. Like you are speaking English, you are learning English, but you are not told that you can never speak Hindi and you have to keep your name in English. Suppose if this happens, how will you feel? I'm sure this will give you a feeling of something being snatched from you, right? And the perturbedness that you will feel that time will be horrible, right? So the same thing happened with this Korean girl, a 10-year Korean girl whose name was Kim Sun Hee, and her brother Kim Tae Yal. So the story is set in the year 1940, and Japan has taken over the Korea. And then Japanese were trying to snatch away the culture, the Korean culture, from the people of Korea. So they were told, Koreans were told to the change their names and have Japanese name, and it was compulsory to talk only in Japanese. So when this girl came to know that her name now, the Kim Sun Hee, now she will not be called by this name and she will get a new name. So she felt really bad. So the story is about her feeling and how everything occurred. So story is about this. Now please pay attention while I am reading. This is the story of a 10-year-old Korean girl, Kim Sun Hee, and her brother Kim Tae Yal. It is the year 1940 and the Japanese have taken over Korea. The Korean people are very unhappy. They do not have the freedom to learn their history, follow their culture, or speak their language. Suddenly, there comes a new law. All Koreans are to take Japanese names. The children's father knows that the law must be obeyed, or else his family could face a strict punishment. So he helps them choose Japanese name and that reflect their Korean roots. Now Sun Hee must learn to accept her new name. How does she feel? So, as I already told you, that the people in Korea were told to change their names and they were not allowed to learn about their history, their culture, and they were not even allowed to speak their language. They were told to speak Japanese and have Japanese name. Now you must be thinking why they were doing this. Why they told Koreans to change their names and not to speak their language, and they were not allowed to learn about their history. Because whenever a country invades in another country, what they try to do, they try to suppress express the culture and the roots of that country. For example, when Britishers came to India and they were ruling here, that time what they did, they were taking away all our cultures, right? The way we were dressing, they changed that also. Slowly they introduced their culture here. And if you remember, that's the reason Swadeshi Apnao Andolan happened, right? So they do this so that people can forget their roots and they accept the foreign culture. They may accept the foreign culture and they forget about their roots. So this way it becomes very easy to rule the people, to govern them. It becomes very easy. So same thing happened here also. Now father of the children knew that he has to change the names of the children, otherwise they will be punished. It was a strict order that they had to follow. So the father was trying to change the name, but he also took care that the original name of the children should not be original name should not be absolutely changed, and he tried to hide their Korean names somewhere in between the Japanese name. So the father took great care of this thing. Now, please see paragraph number 1. I'm going to read. When my turn came, I pointed to the letter K. Abuji gave me a new name, and I went around whispering over and over, Kyoko, Kaneama, Kyoko, Kyoko. So this was her new name, Kyoko Kanyama Kyoko. This was the new name of Kim San-hee, and she chose the initial K for her new name. Japanese family names are usually long, like Kaneyama. Korean ones, like my name Kim, are short. Similarly, Korean first names are almost always two syllables, but Japanese first name can be long or short. So here she is telling that Korean names are very short and but the Japanese names are long, and it can be either long or short. I liked how Abuji had hidden our last name in the new one he had chosen for us. And he had done the same for my first name as well. Girls' names often ended in ko, which means girl in Japanese, but ko could also mean the sun's rays. So Kyoko meant rays of brightness, the same as my real name. And yet, while I could accept Kaneyama Kyoko as a name, I could not think of it as my name. In this paragraph, Sun he is appreciating the effort of her father, that how effortlessly he hid the real names of the children in the new name. As she is telling that Ko in Japanese meant girl and it also meant the sun's rays. And same, her real name, Sun, he also meant the same thing. Though it meant same, still she was not able to accept the new name as her name. For the next few days, there was terrible confusion at school. We had to call our classmates only by their Japanese names. Suddenly, the girl across the aisle from me was Megami, not Mayangan, and the boy who sat behind me was Masado instead of Yangwon. Now she is telling that how terrible the school was when all the children had new names, and she is saying that the girl across the aisle has also a new name, and the boy who sat behind her has also a new name. Aisle means the place where you keep your bag in the classroom, the distance between two rows, and in between you keep your bags. That thing is called aisle. So you walk through it. Our teacher tried to be patient with us. If we forgot and used our classmates' real names, she prompted us gently at first but more sternly as the day passed. I was a good student. I had never once given the teacher cause to beat me. I was very careful to use everyone's Japanese name and to respond when anyone said Kyoko, even though it felt as if they were talking to someone else. But the next day, my brain grew tired of being careful every single minute. And it happened. So when she went in the classroom, everybody had a new name, and now everyone was calling each other with their new names. But children, of course, sometimes failed to call each other with their new names due to their habit. And the teacher very patiently corrected them if any of them used the old name. At first, she was very patient with them, but she was stern, strict as the days passed. And Kyoko was very good student, and she never gave the teacher a chance to beat her. Earlier, corporal punishment means physical punishments were acceptable, but now it is not acceptable and it's not good also. Hurting children in any way is not at all good, and earlier it was accepted. So, Kyoko was so good that she never gave her teacher a chance to beat her. And she was very careful while she called her friends. She was careful enough to call them by their new names only, and she responded only when she was called Kyoko. Even though she felt that they were talking to someone else, they are not talking to San He, and they were talking to Kyoko. She didn't accept that name, still, she was trying to get used to it. But gradually, she got agitated because of this thing, and she was tired of being so careful every single minute. And one day, she made a mistake. Now, see paragraph number 7. I chose the worst possible moment to make a mistake. Onishi san was in the room. He was a Japanese army officer whose job was to make sure all the students were learning to be good citizens of the empire. So Kyoko, who was very careful, made a mistake, and she made mistake in front of Onishi-san, who was standing in the classroom. He was Japanese officer and was assigned to make sure that all the students were learning to be good citizens. Basically, he was there to check the classroom activities whether everyone is speaking Japanese, everyone is calling each other by Japanese name, and they are not following anything that is related to Korean culture, and they have fully accepted the Japanese culture. See paragraph number 8 now. He came into our classroom several times a week, often in the middle of a lesson. We always stopped what we were doing and bowed to him. Then he would stand at the back of the room and observe us for a while. I could tell he made the teacher nervous. I tried especially hard to give the right answers when he was around. Now, Kyoko is saying that they were checked every now and then. And whenever he entered the class, children used to bow to him. Bow means bending. Like when you greet your teacher, good morning, how you do? You don't stand still. You bend a bit and then say good morning, right? Same way in Japanese culture, children, whenever they greet someone, they bend not little bit but too much. They bend. You must have watched in movies or something how they bend and then say hello or something. So, whenever Onishi san entered the classroom, children used to bow to him, to greet him. Okay? And in his presence made the teacher nervous. And that time, Kyoko especially tried very hard to give the right answers. That day, I knew he was in the room. I knew I had to be extra careful not to make a mistake. And somehow, I did the very thing I was trying so hard not to do. I said Mayangin instead of Megami. Kyoko, who was trying so hard to call her friends by their Japanese name now, made a mistake in front of him. She called her friend by her Korean name and not by a new Japanese name, and that was a terrible mistake done by her. Onishi san heard me. He made a funny sound in his throat, like ah. Then he looked at the teacher and made an abrupt motion with his stick. The teacher glanced at him quickly and then at me. Kyoko, to the front, she said. The class was suddenly silent. I could see the surprise in the faces of the other students. After all, I was daughter of the vice principal and I never been beaten before. So she is saying that when she made this mistake of calling her friend by her old name, that time Onishi san was standing there and he heard her. Thereafter, he made a funny sound in his throat and also gave signal to the teacher a sudden motion with his stick. Means he was telling the teacher to hit the girl, to punish the girl because she made a mistake. And that time teacher glanced at him. When he made that sound, teacher looked at him and then he understood what he is trying to tell. He told the teacher to hit the girl with the stick. And then teacher looked at Kyoko and ordered her to come in front. And that time everyone was surprised because she was very good student. She never made mistake and she was extra careful. She was never punished for anything because she was always very careful, and also that she was daughter of the vice principal. So everyone there was quite surprised. Now see paragraph number 13. In the brief moments it took me to walk to the front of the class, I saw the teacher's face. She looked so unhappy that I felt sorrier for her and than for myself. She didn't want to beat me, but she had to because Onishi san was there. It was so unfair. First, our names were taken away, and then we weren't given any time to learn each other's new names. Now, Kyoko is saying that when she came in front of the classroom, she saw that her teacher was not happy with this thing, and now the teacher has to beat Kyoko. So she was very sorry for her teacher also that she has to beat Kyoko, and because of Kyoko, she is in this odd situation. So she was sorry for the teacher also. And also, Kyoko understood that she has to do this because Onishi san was standing there. Kyoko was very sad about this thing. She was thinking that it is not just that first their names were snatched and now they are told to call each other by new names without realizing that it might take time to learn new names. So she was very upset about the whole situation. So we will stop here and remaining chapters we will see in the next video. I hope you have understood everything. Still, if there is any confusion, please ask. Thank you.